Sometimes What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Auburn Blitz podcast. Took a little day off yesterday. Didn't want to, but other things call sometimes. So had to be out of town, and we're back now. So glad that you guys have joined us this morning here on the podcast. We'll give you an update on what's going on in the portal for Auburn. Little status update on Janai Broome. A big game coming up with Purdue on Saturday. And a lot more to talk about this morning. So get your comments in. We appreciate everything that everybody does. We appreciate Sense of Green for air that's cool and clean. Call them Sense of Green. They're part of our podcast now, and we really appreciate them. And good to see you this morning. Portal just continues to churn them out. Auburn continues to pick up some key additions in the portal class, and a few guys getting in the portal for Auburn now, but really still none of note. And then some of the guys that got in look like they're finding a home. Walker White being one of them. Kind of ironic that he'll start or that he'll move over to the team that Auburn starts with next year at Baylor. So will he get a considerable look to be the starter in that football game? I don't know. We'll see what he does when he gets over there.
Yeah, that is an interesting part that you'll see is some of these players able to go to a program that you either start off with or you play throughout the season. And you can't see how that's not a plus for the team that has those guys coming in. I mean, Walker White knows exactly what Auburn's trying to do from an offensive standpoint. Do we change things up? Do we change communication up? Sure, but it doesn't change the philosophy up. It doesn't change the plan up of how you're trying to build this thing. And maybe that's not a big deal. Maybe I'm reading into it too much. But, reading into it, Brett, I call that a problem. And, we used to clean that up by you couldn't transfer within the same conference without sitting out a year, or there were all kind of stipulations that were out there to keep you from doing something like this. But here we are. It's the day and age that we live in. And until we get some strong leadership at the NCAA with a plan and actually draw a line in the sand and not allow you to just step over it and jump over it and skip over it and do whatever the hell you want to do right now, that's where we are with this portal issue. And it's not going to get any better until we get some leadership.
Well, I don't know where that's coming from. Look, I haven't seen as many people as I've seen in the last couple of weeks disgusted with this sport. I mean, it's everywhere. I saw what Clay Travis pushed out last night. I see what everybody's talking about. Everybody's tired of it, man. I mean, I've been screaming it for over a year now. Some of you have said that, well, I mean, it's just the world we live in now. Well, I mean, do you accept laying in a sewer? If you're laying down in sewage, do you just accept that you're laying in sewage? I mean, we're adults. I mean, can't you figure out the thing's broken and that you can't give everybody $3 million? And look, I hear market cap and all that stuff. I'm as pro capitalism as anybody out there, man. But you can't just have an organization that has no rules. I mean, you just brought that up about transferring over, and now guys been with your program and been intertwined in your offense. Goes over and he knows everything that's going on. Now, again, that's been going on for a while. The conference rule was one thing, but somebody transferred out of your conference, there wasn't much you could do there. I mean, that's just bad luck. Nothing I can really say. Hashtag Auburn, if you want to say that, like what we do a lot of times. But, man, I mean, everybody is watching the collapse of this thing. I mean, and kids getting out with drivers and going on these visits and, being escorted around and stuff. Look, I want them to be wined and dined and shown a good time, but there's got to be a limit to everything. You can't, every time you go in the store, your kid cries about getting a toy, you just fold and buy it for them. And no matter what time of a year it is, and whether it's one time a week or 5 times a week, you go in the store, they automatically think they got to get something. I mean, you're a parent, you got to have some rules, don't you, in your house, and you don't let the kids run the household. Well, I mean, I think the universities need to figure out a way to not let the kids run the programs. And both have leverage, but the universities, if they would wake up, no, they have all the leverage. They have the facilities and the fields and the everything that you got to have to give them a platform to play. So again, I'm not going to try to get on here and get into a gripe session about that, but I just think that you see an overwhelming amount of people out here in the media and that cover this sport and have covered this sport. And I've talked to enough of them on the phone now and seen their responses through social media to know that, man, they're concerned and they're worried and they're sick about it. And I don't know what the answer is.
Well, why recreate the wheel is what we've been saying. I mean, if you're going to become a professional sport, then treat it like a professional sport and go out there and find the professional leagues and their setup that you like best and implement those strategies. It's the only thing you can do right now, Brett. There must be contracts. When I get you as a high school senior and you come to Auburn and you expect to get $2 million worth of NIL money over the next 2 years, 3 years, however you stipulate that contract. Well, if you walk away from that contract, then you owe part of that contract back, or you can't go to certain places. I mean, these are normal, everyday business activities that go on in mine and your business and everybody else's businesses out there. And this has become a business, and I'm good with it. But you can't just free will it out there and not have any regulations on how you're going to handle it. So I think that's where we are. We need to look at the NFL, MLB, NBA, MLS, keep going down the line and see how these things are structured and pick the setups that we want and then implement them. But it's going to take a great leader to pull this off. And right now, the leader that I just watched in front of Congress this week, he's not a great leader. He doesn't stand on any grounds. Those congressmen just lit him up like a Christmas tree in there, and he had no way to combat it. And his answers on transgender athletes competing in NCAA were
joke.
They're ridiculous. And look, all of us that have any common sense whatsoever know that men shouldn't be competing against women in any sports. Period.
Well, Randy, this is part of the problem. That I mean, here's the deal. You saw what they said. Kennedy said, "Hey, how about you show some leadership and take a stand?"
They don't have a leader.
But that's I'm talking about in the world. Period. This is the problem. This is where all this got started. And look, I can call some people out. I watch how people raise their kids now, man. And I'm not saying that I'm some perfect parent. I'm not. But I can tell you what my two do. My two have respect. And there's a lot of people out here in this generation that just let their kids do whatever the heck they want. Well, I sit there and watch now what happens in the college. We just say, okay, well then, we just got to succumb to what they want or we're going to lose them. Nobody has any type of forthright to stand up to what they're doing. And so you got a leader in NCAA that just goes, well, I just, I don't really have an answer for why transgender people,
the answer that he gives is there's been 5 different lawsuits that have gone before judges and all of those have been down. It doesn't mean the NCAA has to stick with that. In the NCAA's bylaws, I mean, why have Title IX if you're not going to defend women? I've been saying this somewhere down the line. This is so crazy that the left-wing party, the libs out there, that I think put something together with Title IX that as the father of a daughter and you a father of a daughter, the further we get away from it, the more I appreciate it. Because it did level the playing field for women to have a chance in college athletics. And, I'm hopeful that continues on. But when you get so far left that you start letting biological men compete against women, and then you have these women that bow out of playing against teams that are biological men or swimming or, my gosh, look at the Olympics this past year in boxing. I mean, we've hit a level that I don't think any of us would have ever guessed. But the
We don't
moment
have
that you
common sense anymore.
no, but the moment that you open it up and allow them to just do whatever, you get what you're getting right now. And leadership's just really bad everywhere, but it's very bad in the NCAA
Yep.
currently.
Yeah, it's real simple. They could have taken a stand and said that is completely and totally unacceptable, and that we're not even going to entertain that. But what we do is we let a few rule the majority because they're worried they're going to get sued, and somebody's going to come up with this fallacy and make up this stuff that we all know in the real world doesn't make any sense at all. But somehow we succumb to that, and we start trying to make up new rules to let things happen that don't even make any sense. So, how does this all tie in to where we are with the portal and stuff? It goes back to no rules, man. It goes back to nobody making any type of stand and saying, we're not going to do it this way. We know you have this talent. We know we got to figure out a system that's equitable for everybody, but we can't just let you go on open market free agency every single year in college for 4 or 5 years. And you just get to float around all over the place and go shop and see who you can get to give you the highest bid the next year. I'll read part of what Clay Travis said last night. He had a long thread, but he said, first, college teams are asking fans to buy tickets, gear, concessions, donate to the university, and pay the players too. It's bonkers. Imagine if you bought tickets to watch a pro team play and they passed around a hat for you to pay pro players with your money left over from what you've already spent.
It's what we're doing.
It's exactly what we're doing.
I mean, you look here in this state, we probably cried more in this state yesterday with Auburn and Alabama than anywhere else. I mean, Alabama just pretty much came out yesterday and said, we can't compete on NIL standpoint. We don't have enough people with the deep pockets that some of the competition that we're dealing with out there. So we need you to figure out how to get us some more money so we can keep competing at the level that we expect. And then Auburn goes, well, if you happen to be lucky enough to hold tickets in these certain sections at Jordan-Hare Stadium, then we're going to need you to pony up and pay us some more so we can give that money to these players. I mean, that's Auburn and Alabama. You can throw shade either way. I mean, we can make a joke one way or the other, but we both did it yesterday. So you've been saying it for a long time, Brett. There's a certain point where you go, hold up, I'm good with a capital campaign, but I have to have a capital campaign for my roster every year. And if that's the case, what have we bought into? And we've gotten to a level that I don't think that anybody was expecting as soon as we have. But, we've listened to Bruce Pearl speak for 3 or 4 years now. And he's been saying until legislation goes on the table and Congress makes some decisions that help the leadership with the NCAA close up some of these loopholes and some of this gray area around the country and what's going on with NIL. If you want to know where to give your money, give it to the NIL, give it to the collective, because we've got to go out and get these players. Just forget about that we need a new practice facility for the basketball program. Forget that we're sharing the basketball facility with the women and everybody else that needs that basketball facility. He said, I'm not complaining, but it's just the truth. I mean, others have better than we do right here. But, we've got a great new arena. So give the money and let's go spend it on the players. Well, as long as everybody's good with that, then so be it. But it's very easy for me or you or others that don't give a ton of money to say that we're good with that. But the moment that you're one of these big time donors, these boosters that get blasted all the time, that we've had the good fortune of talking to several of them here recently, Brett. I mean, we blast these people, but then we expect them to pony up and get the guys in, because if those boosters don't go out there and do that, then your college can't compete. And Alabama said that, and Alabama's dead on. The people at that university that said that yesterday, Auburn may want to make a joke out of it. It's the truth. We're doing it one way or another. I mean, we've got to come up with a big number. And you said it yesterday. What was it, Brett? 17 to 22 million
right.
to fill the football roster in today's environment.
Mm-hmm.
And did I hear you right that they think that that's about half of where it expects to
Yeah,
go?
I mean, it's going to settle somewhere around 35 to 40. before it all taps out. Now, again, that's the guy that's the head of On3. That's just his theory. Okay, everybody's got theories. Let
But
me
it
say,
sounds right to me.
but it does. And then I'll add what Clay Travis ended up saying, what he thinks is going to end up happening, which I've heard this from multiple people too. But let me go back to what you were talking about. When you lose the passion for what you're doing, when all of this clouds why you watch the sport, and it takes away from the enjoyment of why you were drawn to it to begin with, guess what? You stop caring and you go away from it and you go figure something else out to do. And I'm gonna be honest with you, Randy. I don't know what it was about this Iron Bowl this year. Maybe because I didn't have any expectations at all going into this game this year. But I even had Alabama fans tell me that we're at the game. They said, "Man, that was the deadest Iron Bowl." Outside of the fight that broke out, they said it looked like both teams could give a rip. Had a former Alabama player, okay, I'm not going to mention names, tell me face to face that he walked by the tunnel and he said both teams looked despondent. Okay, I mean, you're playing in an Iron Bowl. Alabama still got a lot to play for at that point. They're trying to get in the playoffs. Auburn's got some semblance of pride. We thought they may show up because they had just played maybe their best game of the year against Texas A&M, and we all remember the week leading up. We'd built this thing up. Man, Auburn's got a chance to go over there. He said you wouldn't have known that you were playing your rival across the field. This has drifted into this sport, man, where it is purely transactional. That's a term that Nick Saban used on ESPN a few weeks ago. Everything is transactional now with everybody, with coaches, with players, and all that kind of stuff. And I hate it because, again, like I said, it has killed the sport that I've loved and that you've loved growing up. And you better not go buy a 22 jersey or an 85 jersey and expect that guy to be in it for 3 or 4 years like Brent Fullwood and Lawyer Tillman were. I mean, because there's a good chance that whoever you loved and were attached to may not even be at your school next year. They may be catching a pass for a team that you pull against, and that's your rival. I mean, Isaiah Bond. I had plenty of Alabama fans tell me, I'm not hanging that Gravedigger picture up. Yeah, that was great. I'm glad we won, but the guy caught it about 4 weeks later. He was in the portal and at another SEC school. I mean, it doesn't mean anything to these kids anymore. And I'm not saying all of them. I hate to group everybody into one big lump because I know there's some kids that are very grateful that have the opportunity to wear those jerseys and play and all. But for the most part, all of this other stuff that we continue to talk about on a daily basis is what's clouding this sport and ultimately killing the sport. So Clay Travis said, what I keep expecting to happen is for a super rich billionaire to exploit the system, endow an NIL fund with $10 billion or so, and just say we are buying all the best players. There's nothing to stop that right now. A rich dude could literally buy all the top 85 players and put a team together. Okay, we talk about no rules. We talk about what do you do? I mean, there's nothing right now in place to stop somebody that's got more money than Carter's got oats to go out there and say, hey, I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to get behind this particular program. I'm just going to give them an open check. But kind of what Phil Knight has said under the table, he's pretty much issued a decree saying, don't let money stop you from going and getting whoever you need up here at Oregon. I'm 86 years old. I want to win a national championship. And they'll have a chance here in a few weeks to do that. But, man, they're only building up more and more power by going out and plucking out the players everywhere across the country they want.
It's disappointing. It is what it is. But until you, as you read Justin's comment below, contracts mean players have to be employees. The university and players don't want that right now, but I think it has to go that way too. Agree, Justin. Don't know how you fix it until you go out there and you create these contracts and you have them adhere to whatever contract that they sign on to. And maybe that's the direction we're going. We won't get there without leadership, period. Unless somebody steps up to the plate that's a strong leader for the NCAA that everybody gets behind. I know it's easy for me to sit here and say, put Nick Saban in that role. Put somebody that all of the coaches, administration, and everybody can look to and say, that guy right there, given the reins, can make the right decisions and has his heart in the right place. Maybe he don't want to do that. I'm sure he doesn't, but I'm saying someone like that, Brett. And I don't know how much money that person's worth. I don't think you can put a value on how important that would be to go out there and get the right person there. So we'll see. I've got my questions on where we're going with this thing, but when you look at Auburn, I know we need to transition back to the ones that Auburn's got coming in. At least we're sitting here right now, and it feels like we are competing with everyone else from a money standpoint on this transfer portal. The ones that we want to be in on, Brett, we're in on. And the only way that you're in on them is you've got money sitting there that you're ponying out to these players that you're getting in, because there's others, trust me, there are a lot of programs that would like those 2 tackles that we got. So I don't know. I mean, when you got that much leverage, I don't know how much money you got to throw at them, but it's a lot. And there's a bunch of programs that would like to bring the talent that Jackson Arnold's got into their program. So I don't know what it costs at Singleton. I've heard 7 figures for Singleton. I mean, it's $1 million a year. Is that not what you've heard, Brett?
Absolutely.
And no surprise there. So, I mean, we're hot and heavy after all of these guys. So I guess we can sit up here and complain all we want because we don't like the direction it's in, but we can at least be happy that there's some boosters out there and Auburn fans. Thank the Lord for them. If there wasn't Jimmy Raines out there that bleed orange and blue and willing to give their hard-earned money over to something like, how the hell would you get them? You know, we like to throw shade toward those that give as much as they do, Brett. But, man, I mean, really, Brett, let me ask you, how, if you didn't have 4 or 5 of those guys that loved the program and loved the university that much and willing to give it, you wouldn't be competitive in this market. There's no way to be.
No, you wouldn't be. I think, there's a couple different ways to look at this thing. Yeah, Auburn right now is pouring the money in. Will they have that next year? I don't know. Are they selling out this year to try to win something? And if they don't get an ROI, these people giving this money go, you know what? I'm tapped out. I'm done. Until they change this system, I've donated, about as much as I can donate to a cause that puts out a 5 and 7 product. I don't know where. I'm speculating on all this stuff, but yeah, you're right. Right now, I'm glad that we're able to go out and get these players, but it still doesn't make me like this system any better. Even though we're getting some of these players, I'm like, man, I mean, these guys didn't look at Auburn last year. Auburn wasn't on their radar. I mean, we're going to field a daggum offense. It's pretty much got outside of a few receivers, everybody else on the field is going to be new guys. And, we already kind of had accepted this in basketball with the roster turnover because you don't have as many players. And, you're going to have, if you're going to compete in basketball, that precedent was set 15, 18 years ago with, going out and these freshmen being one and done and going to the NBA and, Kentucky filling their roster with 5 freshmen and Duke filling their roster with 5, McDonald All-American blue chippers. And you're not expecting to keep probably any of them if they have the kind of year that you want them to have. And so you just kind of get in that mode of knowing at these elite programs, I'm going to have to bring in a brand new basketball team next year. But they had the power because they were the blue bloods. And so they were able to go out and get the best players. Now that's changed because of NIL and portal. You've said that before. It's brought us into the fold now. I don't fear North Carolina, Duke, any of these teams anymore. Kansas, I'm fine with going toe to toe with whoever, and I'm not talking about just this year. I'm talking about into the future. Because the whole landscape has changed on how you get players and all. But we kind of accepted that in basketball, but that's where it is in football now, man. I mean, what you run out on the field, you may have 85 guys on the roster and they're going to expand that to whatever. But your starters are going to be guys that you go out and get in the portal or somebody that that you feel like can be an immediate impact. Now, how many of those were on your roster the year before? I just said for Auburn's offense, probably half to more than half going to be new guys. And so defense, you bring in new guys in. I mean, you're going to have a lot of new guys, whether it be a freshman or whether it be a transfer portal guy. Just got a linebacker from LSU we'll talk about here in just a minute. But you're going to have to hold – there's never been a better time to go buy a football program. because you're gonna need one every year. You're gonna need to see who's playing. You're not going who's wearing what number out there. So it's crazy. So let's look at some more of these comments here. Just said, I'm not really looking for a job, but I do know I'd like to impact college football the best way I can, whether it's being a spokesperson or anything else. That's what Nick Saban said a few weeks ago.
Go hire him. Really, go hire him. You want to fix this thing, you got to go get somebody strong that carries some weight with what they say, and you have confidence. Look, Auburn fans, we may want to say, well, I don't trust Nick Saban. He still bleeds crimson, and he's going to set up something. No, I don't believe that. I really don't. I think you've got to get somebody in there that understands, all the dirty angles to this thing, Brett. And there are so many angles that are out there that you and I aren't thinking about because we're not dealing with it on a daily basis. You got to get somebody that knows how to deal with this and put them in place. And so, and put a big number out there, because you're going to have to coerce them into taking a job that's not going to be easy unless you just have a true passion and true love, like we do at the top with, say, Donald Trump willing to be a billionaire and say, or Elon Musk willing to man up Doge for zero, just because they love the country and want to help. Maybe you luck into something like that, but Nick Saban's having great success in the broadcasting field. You got to coerce him away from that. But I think somebody like that, whether it be Kirby Smart whenever he wants to retire, I don't know who it needs to be, but who do you think, Brett? Right now, I know who's in the lead right now is not the right one for the NCAA, because he stands on no brain.
Well, that was an embarrassment. In front of Congress. Look, you just go back and watch it. When you try to, again, he's the poster child of what you see leading a lot of organizations in this world now, trying to push off his reasoning behind something on a court ruling or something else. What are these guys scared to be a leader now? Do that?
Yes.
I think maybe some of them want to do it, but I think they're so terrified. Well, Kennedy just basically told him, he said, well, you're probably going to get sued, but go get sued. Stand up for something. Stand up for what you know is right. Don't come give me some mushed up answer and gray area. Don't take a stand on why something should be the way it is. And again, I think most of these guys and women are terrified of being sued or being canceled and in the society that we've lived in the last 4 years. And I hope we're turning the corner out of that. But I told you this weeks ago, from 2020 to now, feels like we've been in some type of twilight zone. And you go back to 2020, man, and you can go back and pull up every single thing from 2020. If you can go back and pull up our shows from back then, I was adamant against that vaccine. Y'all know that. And, it's easy in the moment to get caught up. And so the SEC, when you got these guys in higher positions start saying things, well, the rest of the general public wants to fall in line because they go, oh, well, he's saying that, so I guess we need to do that. I'm not giving Brian Harsin any praise because I don't like that guy at all, but I will say this. He did take a stand against that vaccine. When everybody else was lining up like cattle to the slaughter, he said, I ain't doing that. And I'm not releasing how many people on our team have a vaccine, or I am not making my team get a vaccine. I will give him props back then to that, because the rest of us all just lined up to the slaughter because public leaders and officials said it, and they didn't have they had no knowledge of what they were out there talking to people about. They were just out there using their position to create chaos and panic. And people just walked right up and did what they did with no reasoning, no background, no anything, because they played on people's fear. Well, that's what these leaders are doing in places like the NCAA and corporate America. They're scared that they're going to get canceled or somebody's going to come in there and sue them and take everything they've got because because they'll take a stand for what's right. So I'm, again, sorry to go on that little diatribe, but coming back around, I hope we're coming out of all that. I hope we can find some leaders that'll stand up for common sense, and let's get some rules and regulation into the college athletic world. and let's get some things going in the right direction and say, look, it's not going to be easy, but let's take a stand for people that do things the right way. And hopefully we'll do that. All right, so let's talk about some of these portal guys that Auburn got yesterday. They were able to pick up Xavier Atkins from LSU. That's another linebacker. Auburn losing several guys in the middle of that defense, so they go out and get Xavier Atkins. That was a big pickup. And they go out and get Western Kentucky defensive lineman Dallas Walker the fourth. So a big-time pickup there for the defensive front. He was at Texas A&M, then transferred to Western Kentucky, and now will be transferring to Auburn. So a couple more big pickups on the defensive side of the football for DJ Durkin.
Doing a tremendous job. I've got a lot of confidence in the guys that he's picking. Although some of the guys that we got out of the portal this past year weren't hyper productive, all of them were productive. All of them had a role, and at least by the end of the season, we're starting to get better within that role. And he had a couple, including there at linebacker, that was a tremendous pickup on the defensive side. So I got all the confidence in the world on our defensive staff, DJ Durkin. Now let's see if we can start getting some confidence on this offensive side, because I know I'm beating a dead horse, but it's an amazing point that I keep making. And I'm not saying that I make some great point that everybody else does, but I make the same point that I think most Auburn fans do. We hire offensive-minded coaches, and we get terrible offense. It is an amazing thing to see that Auburn keeps going out there. The last defensive-minded head coach that we hired was Tommy Tuberville. I mean, the rest of them have all been offensive-minded coaches. And I would say 80% of the time we've lost football games due to an inefficient offense. Would you agree with that?
No doubt.
So
all year this year,
I have no answer for it. So again, DJ Durkin on the defensive side, I trust his judgment. If that's who he thinks will fit into his system, then all power to him. Now let's see if we can get it right on the offensive side.
We didn't get a chance to talk about Amaris Williams yesterday, Randy, because we weren't on. Big hold there to get him to stay at Auburn. Again, talking about the defense, another win there to keep Amaris Williams, because we all feel like he's going to be a great player for whoever it was he was going to play for. I'm just glad he stayed at Auburn. That was a big get.
Well, it's a leverage game, and I'm sure Amaris Williams used the leverage that he had, knowing that a lot of programs wanted him out there. And the only way that you can hold on to him in this current setup is probably to give him more money. I mean, you can't necessarily commit to someone playing more. I mean, you can tell them they're going to play more, but doesn't mean when they come back they actually do. Now, you may have to go back to the bartering table the next year if you don't hold up what you say, but it's taking more money, Brett, to keep these guys that you had on last year. And I understand, look, if you're a receiver, if you're a linebacker, if you're a defensive end, and Auburn's going on the portal and they're offering wide receivers, offering linebackers and defensive ends and giving them 2 to 3 times more of the money than you're getting there, then you're going, do you not have confidence that I can get it done? I get it. Trust me, I get it. But I wouldn't want to be in this system trying to fight this battle. I feel for these coaches when it comes to that, Brett. I don't think I could handle it that well. I really don't. I mean, that's got to be a negotiation every single year, a lot of times, for people that you're still speculating on whether they're going to perform or not.
That is, again, it's got to be, and I said this, and I'm not saying cry a river for football coaches in college football because they get paid a lot of money, but if they've ever earned their money, they earn it now.
Amen.
I mean, they are. It is a nonstop, constant battle of retaining your roster, trying to fill holes in the people that you've lost, and guess what? Go out and figure out a way to win a football game on the field. They're so consumed. And look, I don't want this to be misinterpreted, but I'm just using this as a conversational point. Hugh Freeze has done a phenomenal job in recruiting. We all agree on that. has he been so overly consumed, Randy, with that part and building this roster to where it is now that the on the field part of the coaching on the offensive side has suffered? Because the defensive side hasn't suffered. I'm just throwing a point out there now. Again,
Yeah,
is
I
he
don't know.
spending all the time that he needs to spend to get it done? I'm questioning that too, because we've heard different things on what goes on during the week and all that. I'm not bringing that up again, but I'm saying, has his priority been so much on, hey, I got to get this roster to the point where we can move forward every single year, and he finally feels like, I mean, again, because we've all said the no excuse zone exists right here now. I mean,
That's what I was about to say.
going into 3 years, going into the third year, with everybody, with recruiting the way he's done and going out and kicking tail in this portal now, there's really nobody that you can blame but yourself if you don't get wins on the field.
I agree with you 100%. Enough's enough. And the question is, he's been saying it into a mic that's been the problem. But at a certain point, you can't use excuses, because those excuses get heard by others, Brett. We've always heard that. Well, I'd like to use excuses. I'm in a leadership role. But if I say those excuses out loud, then the people that are under me have those excuses to use too. So where we stand with Auburn is, when a mic goes in front of him and he has another excuse in year 3 on why we can't put a winning product out there, and us Auburn fans don't go on blast, then we're hurting ourselves, because we're going to keep getting the same product that we're getting if we have excuses, and there is none now. The year of the transfer portal, if the money seems to be flowing as much as it's flowing, because Auburn wouldn't be in the mix again for any of these guys if we didn't have a lot of money flowing. So we're competing when it comes to that. But you guys stop using excuses, and then we'll build something. I think he's that special a recruiter that he'll build something. But we got to trust his judgment on the guys that he's going and getting, and then he's got to develop them and produce. And I said it last weekend. If we can't develop Deuce Knight as a quarterback, from the talent standpoint I saw this past weekend in that all-star game matched up against other all-stars, if you can't develop that, I have zero confidence that one, you can get anybody from the high school ranks to the next level. And Auburn has proven time and time again that we haven't been able to pull that off the quarterback position.
John Mateer ends up going to Oklahoma like we thought. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, he was by far the best quarterback, I thought, in the portal. Yeah. And everybody kind of knew that. So we get Jackson Arnold, they get John Mateer. They're going to be a different team next year when we go to Norman, Oklahoma to play them. That one wasn't. And then the ruling for Pavia yesterday, to get an extra year. He appealed and won that battle. And now, guess what that does, Randy? It opens up once again. That's just not a Diego Pavia getting the benefit. Everybody that falls in that category will have an opportunity to have another year of college eligibility if they want to, if they fall into that category that he fell into. So I think Chad Baker-Mazara for Auburn on basketball falls into that category. Now, will he come back next year? How big of a get would that be to get him to come back one more year? Whereas you were going to lose him this year if you didn't have this ruling. So, again, things are so fluid in college athletics. Justin said Fields and Singleton to AU today. Who knows? Kind of hearing that, kind of what the everybody said, watch Thursday for those guys. So we're here at Thursday, so I wouldn't be surprised to see. It feels like, a deal had been struck with Singleton for sure, but we'll see. Things are fluid. Ed said, where's John Cohen? I thought he was a master fundraiser. His only responsibility is not raising money for facilities. I've heard that Butch has raised every penny for Plainsman Park. Again, you saw Greg Byrne yesterday pleading and begging. I mean, Alabama football is the standard. I hate to say it, but it is in college. And that was another point I was going to bring up just a minute ago, Randy. When you got Alabama's AD going, man, if y'all don't do something, I mean, it's literally like you're on the Titanic and there's one life preserver left and you're clinging to it and you're going, I can't stay out in this cold water, for longer than about 20 minutes. If somebody don't come get me, I'm going to die. That's how urgent of a message that was that he issued yesterday to the best college football program in the country. And we saw it drop off this year, Randy. You brought it up. I mean, it didn't take long to see the difference in the makeup of that Alabama team. Just the little things,
Actions.
Absolutely. Do you think that's going to get any better next year?
No.
I mean,
it'll get worse.
I agree. And so, man, it just feels like you're in a spiral that's out of control, man. You're in a tornado if you're a lot of these programs, and they're panicking. What I heard yesterday was panic. And my good friend Gary Harris is going to do a 3-part interview series over the week that's going to be aired over Christmas break. He told me, man, he's like, I'm going to ask some pointed questions. He said, I like Greg, but I need to hear some answers. I need to know what a plan is. I'm not sure he has a plan based off that tweet that we saw yesterday. I'm not sure he has a plan.
Well, back to Ed. And Ed asked a good question, because I'm sure that if you're a baseball fan at Auburn, and we've got a lot of them, you're wondering, where do we fit in? And so Cohen, being a baseball guy, I'm sure he loves that program and wants to make baseball at Auburn as strong as, say, where he had it when he's at Mississippi State and other places where, maybe there's more money that goes into that program than we've had go into ours here. I don't know that for a fact, but let's just speculate that. Brett, I mean, you think about what you just said about the AD over at Alabama. I mean, you're walking in every morning, and what is expected of you? How often do you call Jimmy Rain a year and ask for money? How many times do you pick up the phone and call Tim Cook and ask for money? I'm asking.
Just keep going back to the well.
Because in the day of NIL, unless you figure out how to get the collective built up to where you and I give our fair share, and then everybody else gives their fair share, so you don't have to go back to the same 8 or 10 people every time you need something. Because there has to be a point where you go, I mean, I've given $15-20 million this year. I don't know what that number is, but I mean, it's got to be a wild number that some of these guys are expected to give every year, Brett. It really does.
But it's drifted down into the fans, like the common fans. And
you heard us yesterday, Cohen yesterday. If you are a certain select group of ticket holders, then we're going to need you to pony up to help us pay for these players.
Well, and again, let's not forget that inflation's horrific out here, and that people, their money isn't going as far as it used to go anyway. You can make more money. You can make more money today, and I'm sure a lot of people are making more money in their career today than they ever have, but it doesn't go as far. So you keep asking everybody that just tries to go and be a fan. When you start asking them to hold your program up, to be the pillars of your program, you got a problem, man. You're at your last ditch effort.
Well, let me ask this question. If I hold 4 season tickets to Auburn football, and 4 season tickets to Auburn basketball, and 4 season tickets to Auburn baseball, because there's a lot of fans out there that would like to do all 3 of those things. Don't you agree, Brett?
Oh, absolutely.
Especially if you're in retirement age. Let's say you and I hit 65, Brett. We decide to retire. We live in Auburn, or we live close enough to Auburn that we would like to go take advantage of being a fan and not have to deal with the daily grind of work. And I'm willing to spend my money. What does it cost? What does the average fan pay a year to hold those?
I will say,
and I would like to know what the difference in that cost for the average fan is today to even 10 years ago. Or gosh knows, don't even think back 20 years ago.
I'd love to know that number, but it's got to be, man, you got to have a
25 grand.
I was going to say 25. That was where my mind was.
And that's without giving any additional money.
That's just you buying. That's just you buying your tickets, man.
That tickets and
Tigers
maybe
Unlimited.
Some peripheral stuff, things around it. maybe, a tailgate spot. I don't know.
still call it Tigers
people are
Unlimited.
expected all that. Yeah.
Yeah, I still call it Tigers Unlimited, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. I'd say 25 to 30 grand a year to be able to do that. Wouldn't be surprised at all.
That's an expendable income that you don't have built in for, like, what if somebody decides they want to spend that 25,000 on a couple of nice trips somewhere, and you're traveling, you're talking about retirement age, and you're talking about 65 years old, you talk about, man, maybe I want to go spend that money traveling and doing some other things rather than dumping it into, a situation where I'm getting begged for more and more money and they keep raising my prices. You can take some pretty nice trips for $25,000.
We'll see if it ends up hurting some programs. I sense that it's already hurting some. There's some programs like ours that are rabid enough to probably get away with it when you put a good product out there. You take Auburn basketball. My wife and I go to Auburn basketball games with our kids. We go to football too. I'm gonna tell you where she's staying. You can take her to enough Auburn basketball game. The atmosphere is great. The product's great. You about have to drag her in there by her nails into a football game right now. I mean, that's how bad that product is. She has no, and look, she's not as rabid a sports fan as you and I are. You know what I'm saying? So, but she does have tickets to both. But I mean, I don't have a good answer for this. I'm just saying that's how important having a good product makes you out there.
Well, this is a comment of something that we all know in the world. Trust me, you and I know this well, and I'll give my take on this. Ed said there's about to be a talent tax of 10% on every single ticket sold to every event. These ADs are having that hard of time raising money. Boy, it's rough in the sales world. Let me just go ahead and personally tell everybody. The
amen.
The back of every business in this country, and it is based on the guy that sells. And if you aren't a salesperson in that role, if you're just a manager in the AD role and you're not a marketer and somebody that can go out and sell your program and convince people to spend their money, you're screwed. I already know any other way I can spend that one, because I wake up every single day of my life and have for about 28 years now and been a salesperson. All right. In the college world of recruiting kids to come to a college, and in our world of business, Randy, of going out and selling our product to convince businesses to come on board and be part of what we do. And we're very forever grateful for every one of them. And we've been very blessed that most of them have stayed with us because we do feel like we put a great product out. And if we weren't putting a great product out, those businesses and organizations would pull away from us, right? That's what we're talking about here. So it all comes back to the simplicity of who's in charge and can they get it done in that position? Because without a good salesperson, you have no business. It's dead. It's dead on arrival. And I think Tennessee, I may be wrong, Tennessee's already attached some type of tax onto every ticket for these players.
They have. You're right.
So again,
so back to my point. Let's say that you want to have 4 tickets to all of those and it costs you 25 to 30 grand a year. Well, add 10 to that. And the problem is in higher education world, it's adding 10% all up and down the line. I mean, how much more is Braden's tuition than what you paid 25?
And let me just tell everybody, I just wrote that check right at Merry Christmas. Got that e-bill that came across on December the 5th. And, you got to pay the tuition. And, we're fortunate he's got some scholarships, but not enough to cover all of it. And, buddy, when you have to stroke several $1,000s worth of checks 3 times a year, I mean, this thing, tuition is not going down. It's going to continue to go up. Again, it goes back to what I was saying, Randy. There's people out here, you may be making more money than you've ever made, but your money don't go as far anymore. Now you got these ADs coming out here begging for more and more and more. And like Wayne said, remember when a season ticket book was $105 and a donation was 100 per seat? Boy, those were the good old days, weren't they?
Well, hey, I had a Russell Foundation scholarship out of high school. Thank the Lord for the Russell Foundation. Growing up in Alexander City,
I did too.
And it was $3,000 a year. correct? You just had to hold a
That's right.
2.5 GPA, and you got that $3,000 every year. And we were on the quarter system then. So I would take $1,000 of each quarter. I'd pay my tuition at Auburn. I'd go buy my books. And when I first started, I'd have a couple of $100 left over. You remember that, Brett?
I totally
a couple of
remember.
$100 left over. Now it cost a lot more than that because I had other expenses at Auburn that had to be taken care of. But my point is, by the time I was out, that wouldn't cover it all. We'd have to go into our pocket. But that's changed. That I would like to think that's not a long, long time ago, because it's 24 years ago that I graduated from Auburn. And it's, I mean, I don't know, maybe there's more enrollment in those universities than there ever has been. So I can't tell them the business model's working, but it's wild to me to think that there's that many people out there that can just happily turn over $35,000 a year for 4 tickets to go to 3 different sports that they want to go to.
And tuition, I'll just go ahead and break the news to everybody out there. If your kid's taking 15 hours a semester, it's probably 6 to 8, even up to $9,000 a semester. I mean, buddy, this area, I look out here every day. I'm looking out my window right now, and everything I see on those trees is dead. I don't see any $100 bills growing out there, man. And look, if that's the route you're going to go, and my whole family, your family, you know, we've gone to college, and that's what we've instilled in our kids is important. And, you know, and let me just say, Braden's having a great experience at Auburn. It's been great. I mean, he's part of the, you know, athletic department, the turf crew, and he's got a good job, and, you know, he's in a field that he really loves. So that makes you feel good as a parent that your kid found something that he wants to do, and feels like he's in the right area. But man, it didn't make it any easier. So to write and stroke those checks when you know the tuition continues to go up. Some more things before we get off here. Just said Bruce's first or second year, I think I bought basketball tickets for 2 shillings and a penny. Well, if you looked at the War Eagle TV documentary on Auburn basketball, and that last year with Tony Barbee in there, a can of Campbell's soup, man, you could have had a whole season ticket book, not just for one game. You could have gotten season tickets for 1 can of Campbell's chicken noodle soup. I'm telling you, I did not realize, I don't guess because we had just gotten so used to Auburn basketball being that pathetic. But, man, you talk about nobody in the arena. I mean, the cheerleaders were over there, and there was like one random dude sitting up there in the stands in each section, and it's like, I'm like, are we scrimmaging? Is this an exclusive? No, it was a basketball game. It was a full-out basketball game. And so if you counted the officials and the rosters of both teams and the trickle of fans in the stands, there may have been 50 people in there.
How important it is to get the right leader. And if you don't have it, you can't get rid of them quick enough. I mean, you've got to make that decision very, very quickly. And thank the Lord for Bruce Pearl. He's the best we've ever had in any sport. The only couple that you could even remotely have an argument, if you just wanted to have an argument back and forth, Pat Dye, Shug Jordan, and Hal Baird in baseball.
Right.
The only ones that even are worthy of you having this discussion. But for my money, Bruce Pearl is the best coach, marketer, and leader that Auburn University has ever had, bar none.
Oh yeah, it's not close. And yeah, we're so blessed to have him for sure. All right, Janai Broome is going to be in rehab protocol. Thank goodness it didn't require surgery on his shoulder. But he did dislocate his shoulder, and it did pop back in. That's the same issue he had last year. So you got to watch that moving forward the rest of the year. And don't think. Look, I'm not trying to say that anybody out there do anything on purpose, but don't think teams don't know that. And without Janai Broome on that floor for Auburn, we're still a good basketball team, but we're not the same team. Don't even try to think we are. You lose a guy that's pretty much running away with National Player of the Year honors, and you take him off your team for an extended amount of time, you're going to have some issues. So hopefully he can get back healthy. He won't play against Purdue on Saturday, and obviously I don't think he'll play against Monmouth either before the SEC schedule starts. But hated to see that, but it could have been a lot worse. It could have been season ending, but thank goodness it wasn't. And he's going to have a chance to get back for SEC play and help continue this great season for Auburn, because I think we have far and away the best team in the country. I do. I keep saying that, but that's with him on the roster.
Well, I think we can win a majority of the games on our schedule without him. But if you ask me if we can win a championship without him, the answer is no.
No.
I mean, you got to have a guy that is the best to really get you over the hump. I mean, most of the teams that we've seen win them have had someone that would be considered a top 5 player in the country. That when it gets down to the grind and the end of the ball game, you can count on them to go get you a bucket. And Janai so far this year has been that guy, Brett, all over the court, whether it be a bucket or an assist or a rebound. He's been the best player in the country. And, I noticed him, pretty much the second part of the first half and the entire second half, and he didn't look distraught over there. When
Right.
your season comes to an end, it's not that he was jumping up and down and acting crazy. He wasn't. But he was getting up and cheering his teammates on, and had a nice little back and forth with Chaney Johnson when he came off the court with his 26 points and 8 rebounds the other night. And, it was good to see. But he, I had a sense that, in the back of his mind, he knew that he was going to be okay, that it wasn't something as serious as was maybe expected when you first saw it, because it was an ugly looking injury to watch, Brett.
Yeah, it was scary. I mean, he immediately ran off the floor into the locker room, and you didn't think it was going to be really good at all. So thank goodness he's going to be good there, and hopefully can get back to full strength sooner than later. Mike G said Oklahoma upgraded at quarterback. Auburn did not. I
Sound like Brett, Mike.
I definitely think John Mateer was an upgrade for Oklahoma. Now,
Yep.
I'm hoping that Jackson Arnold is an upgrade for what we had, and I'm hoping that he just needed a change of venue, because again, we saw Bo Nix when he went to Oregon became a different player, and I'm kind of clinging to hope that's going to be the case for us. But we'll see.
I'll say this. If he's not, turn the reins over to Deuce Knight so fast. I mean, you don't even blink how fast you turn him over to him, because us Auburn fans will deal with some growth if we're not dealing with some growth for some elder statesmen in college football that have bounced all over the place and really haven't found their way and haven't been hyper successful wherever they've been. So I've seen enough to know that Deuce Knight's got the talent, that if he gets the time and he gets the development, he's going to be great at Auburn. So I'll say that, Brett. I mean, yes, from an upgrade standpoint in the transfer portal, I think Oklahoma, but I think we've got a freshman coming in that we may have to take some knocks, Brett. But I'd rather take my knocks with the ceiling being as high as Deuce Knight's than take my knocks with somebody that, for whatever reason, hasn't had success in all the places he's been.
Justin, I'm changing my middle name to Hope. Okay, so there's that for everybody. So yeah, Hope, Brett Hope Pritchard. If you're an Auburn fan, I'd suggest all of you change your middle name to Hope as well. Kelly said there's always been the issues of big donors meddling in day-to-day operations. I would assume they would have even more power now with these big NIL donations as to how that money is spent. Absolutely. They're going to have more power. They're going to have more say. They're going to have everything, because they're the power behind the machine, and they're the one propping the programs up with their donations. So yeah, I mean, it is in the back before this all came out in this era of NIL, Randy. That's what we used to call it, donors meddling, because they would donate money and they would have under the table power to say, hey, I want y'all to do this. Or, we talked about it ad nauseum with Bobby Louder and all back in the day. Now it's out in the open, and now these universities are absolutely dependent on these guys. So absolutely they have all the say. And if a guy's giving you $2, $3, $4 million a year and helping you fund your NIL and your collective, then you dang right he's going to have a say in what goes on and probably who they want to go after. So it's almost like ownership of a NFL team, except there's not just one. There's, probably 3 or 4 big donors that support these colleges.
Jerron makes a comment here. Arnold will be the Oregon version of Nick's War Down Eagle. I mean, Brett says the same. So. He's hopeful.
I hope so.
That's all that we can hope for. But Auburn has taken advantage of the transfer portal before and made it work out when those quarterbacks didn't perform up to the level that we got them to. Now, I've said it till I'm blue in the face. We can't seem to develop a high school quarterback. Can't think of the last one. Maybe Brandon Cox was the last great high school quarterback that we developed at Auburn. But we've taken some out of the transfer portal and got greatness out of them, at least 3 of them. 1 year with Stidham. Both years with Nick Marshall and Cam Newton. I mean, all 3 of those worked out. Some others haven't, so I'm hopeful.
Kelly said there was a segment on CNBC this morning about the possibility of selling 51% of the university's ownership to investor groups. Unbelievable, man. Look, you talk about getting into, I mean, the state, Alabama and Auburn are state-owned universities. They receive state funding, and they're backed by state. They're all the employees are in the state retirement system, and now you're talking about selling off interest of the universities, and ownership to investor groups, man. We're going down a path so fast. Somebody said this the other day. Everybody's driving a car at 120 miles an hour, and you got a group of them on one end of the road, and you got a group on the other end, and they're coming right at each other, and there's no brakes, and it is going to be an explosion, and it's going to have to tear itself down before it builds itself back up. Because right now, you're right. If you're a private investor group, you're going, hey, I got some money. I'd help you fix your problem. They're coming as a solution maker. And these universities are getting in desperate. What happens when you get desperate, Randy?
You make decisions that long-term you're not happy with.
That's it.
And but that's where we are. And we deserve to be here. We have been led by so many pitiful excuses for a leader, from the head of our country to the head of our universities. And they both go hand in hand together with this woke society that we live in, by the way. I mean, we have earned everything that we're getting right here. And I don't have a good answer. My only answer is go out there and hire the best leader you can for the NCAA that's got a backbone, put him in charge, and give him the leeway to make some decisions and abide by those decisions that he makes.
Only athletic departments is what
that makes sense, Kelly.
Yeah, that makes sense. But you're still selling off a majority of your product to an investor group. So when you sell 51%, you don't have the say anymore. You don't.
Well, then all of a sudden it really does truly become a business.
Absolutely.
And that investor group's got to make profit. And
no doubt.
It's where we are. It's where pro teams are, and it's where the universities are. So I'm not surprised to hear that. I mean, you're going to either have to figure out how to do it internally or to get somebody in here that's a professional at making money and figure out how to work all of this system together.
Well, just like we had a comment just a minute ago, these ADs are struggling. Ed saying these ADs can't sell, and they're struggling convincing people to. So you got to bring somebody in. If not, you're going to die on the vine. All right, close out with tomorrow is playoff, and the playoffs start tomorrow. Indiana at Notre Dame tomorrow night. Randy, your thoughts as we get the 12-team playoff going? I mean, it should be fun. I know that, we're going to be at a function tomorrow night. We're going to be watching that game because it's the first ever 12-team playoff game. And, some history between those two programs. And there could be some weather issues. Obviously, it'll be outside. It's going to be cold. Could it be snowing? Maybe. So it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, these home and home, and not home and home, but these home matchups for the first round's really interesting, especially if a Southern team has to go up north. It's not the case here. These two programs in that area of the country is probably going to be very rabid with this matchup. I think it's a great matchup. I like all of these setups, Brett. I really do. I like this 12-team playoff. I think that it's going to be fun, and I'm hopeful that Auburn finds our way into it at some point. But I'm with you. It gives you a lot more opportunity to watch real football. Like, I mean, things matter with these football games because there's too often. Take the NBA right now. It's hard for me to get into an NBA game or some other game right now in the middle of the season.
Horrible product, by the way.
I can't get into
product.
it. And so this product is still the parity's still somehow really good. When you have an Indiana that gets into this thing coming from where they've been, the parity you can't. I thought the parity would get worse, and it probably has. We'll see how the SEC performs in this thing. My guess is the SEC is going to run away with it unless Oregon's a lot better than I think they are. Once they match up with a really physical SEC team, I think it'll show up. But until then, it does give you a chance to come from nowhere and find your way back into it. Indiana's the poster child of a school and a team that pulled that off.
And then obviously we'll talk more tomorrow about the games on Saturday, and we'll have Saturday Sports Countdown as well. So, all right, a little after 9 o'clock, we're going to wrap it up here on the Auburn Blitz podcast. Again, want to remind everybody, Auburn Blitz TV show and on social media will be on at noon today, as it always is. And, want to thank Sense Green for all that they do for our program and all of our sponsors out there on the TV side, J. Smith Construction and Excavation, Russell Do-It Center and Building Supply Stores as well for what they bring to the table. But Sense of Green here on the podcast, for air that's cool and clean, call on Sense of Green. They're your official carrier dealer out there, so make sure you call on them. They have some really cool things going on heading into the new year, some discounts, basically giving money away on new units. So give them a call today.
Lee Apparel and Sign Source down here in Dayville. Hope to be in Auburn very soon with a new location that we're working on daily to get over there. Maybe a couple of new locations over there as we may be merging with another sign company there in the Auburn market. But 256-825-0197, from custom corporate apparel to promotional products on the Lee Apparel side to signs from start to finish. We can work with you on all of the above. 256-825-0197.
All right, everybody, have a great day. We'll see you tomorrow.